Choose her or us. The words echoed across the dining room so sharply that even the grandfather clock in the corner seemed to stop ticking. No one reached for their food. No one looked at me. Every pair of eyes was fixed on my husband. I sat perfectly still, my fingers wrapped around a glass of water I hadn't touched all evening. Across the table, his mother folded her hands with the confidence of someone who had already decided how the night would end. Beside her, his older brother leaned back in his chair, wearing the same smug smile he'd worn since we walked through the front door. They weren't asking a question. They were delivering a verdict, and they believed they already knew his answer. If they had looked at me, they would have seen a woman who appeared calm, but underneath the table, my knees were trembling. Not because I was afraid of losing my husband, because I was afraid he might finally see the truth about the family he had spent his whole life trying to please. My name is Emily Carter, and for 3 years, I believed love was strong enough to survive anything. I was wrong. Love can survive almost anything, but only when two people are willing to fight for it. When I met Daniel, he wasn't the loudest man in the room or the richest. He was simply kind. The kind of man who remembered little things, like how I hated mushrooms on pizza or how I always carried tissues because strangers' stories made me cry. He made me feel safe. We met at a charity event where both of us had signed up to serve meals at a homeless shelter. While everyone else rushed to finish, Daniel stayed behind, helping an elderly man tie his shoes because arthritis made his hands shake. That was the moment I noticed him. Not because he was trying to impress anyone, because he thought no one was watching. Our first date lasted 6 hours. Our second lasted an entire weekend. Within a year, he proposed. People always say, when you marry someone, you marry their family. I laughed when they said it. I wish I hadn't. The first time I met Daniel's parents, his mother, Patricia, hugged me so tightly I thought I'd gotten lucky. Then she smiled. It wasn't warm. It was measured. The kind of smile someone gives when they're inspecting a product before deciding whether to keep it. "So," she said, looking me up and down, "you're the teacher." I nodded. "I teach 4th grade. "Oh." She took a slow sip of her coffee. "I thought Daniel would marry someone more ambitious." I laughed awkwardly, assuming she was joking. She wasn't. Daniel squeezed my hand beneath the table. "Mom?" "What?" she replied with an innocent shrug. "I'm just making conversation." That became her favorite sentence. Every insult, every criticism, every backhanded compliment. I'm just making conversation. When we announced our engagement, she smiled for the family photos. Then she pulled Daniel aside. I only learned about that conversation months later. She had told him he was making the biggest mistake of his life. According to Patricia, I wasn't beautiful enough. I didn't come from enough money. My parents weren't well connected. And because I was a public school teacher instead of a lawyer or doctor, she believed I would hold Daniel back. Daniel told her she was wrong. She didn't argue. She simply waited. Looking back now, I realize she believed every marriage eventually cracks. She was patient enough to wait for ours. After the wedding, things only got worse. Every Sunday dinner felt like an interview where I had already failed. Patricia criticized everything. The way I dressed, the meals I cooked, the gifts I bought, even the way I laughed. One Thanksgiving, I spent 8 hours preparing homemade desserts because she insisted everyone should contribute. After taking one bite of my apple pie, she smiled politely. "It tastes homemade." Everyone laughed. Except Daniel. He quietly placed his fork down. "I think it's the best pie here." His mother rolled her eyes. "Of course you do." Moments like that happened constantly. Tiny cuts. Never deep enough to explain to outsiders, but enough to leave scars. His brother, Michael, wasn't much better. He treated me like I had won the lottery by marrying Daniel. "You're living the dream," he'd say with a grin. "You should thank us every Christmas." At first, I ignored him. Then I learned something important. Bullies don't stop because you're polite. They stop when someone finally refuses to play their game. The real problem wasn't Patricia or Michael. It was that the rest of the family stayed silent. Silence has a strange way of making cruel people feel righteous. Daniel tried. He really did. Whenever something happened, he'd talk to his mother privately. She would cry, tell him I misunderstood her, promise she'd do better. For about a week. Then everything started again. 2 years into our marriage, Daniel received incredible news. He was promoted to Regional Operations Director. It came with a significant raise and a company bonus. I was so proud of him I cried in the parking lot after he told me. That night we celebrated with takeout on our living room floor because we hadn't unpacked our new dining table yet. We laughed, dreamed about buying a house, talked about starting a family. For the first time, everything felt possible. The next morning, Patricia called. She somehow already knew about the promotion. "I've been thinking," she said. Dangerous words. "You know your brother's business has been struggling." Daniel frowned. "I know. Family helps family. I've helped Michael before. Not enough." She wanted Daniel to invest almost his entire bonus into Michael's failing company. Without a contract, without ownership, without any repayment plan. Just because they were family. When Daniel told me about it, I didn't tell him what to do. I simply asked one question. If the situation were reversed, would Michael do the same for you? Daniel didn't answer. Because he already knew. The answer was no. He politely declined. That decision changed everything. From that moment forward, I stopped being Patricia's least favorite daughter-in-law. I became the woman who had turned her son against his family. Every disagreement, my fault. Every boundary, my fault. Every decision Daniel made, also my fault. She started telling relatives I was controlling, manipulative, a gold digger. Ironically, I was still driving the same 5-year-old Honda I'd bought before meeting Daniel. One afternoon, my friend Rachel called me. I wasn't sure if I should tell you. Tell me what? I ran into your mother-in-law at the country club. I wasn't a member. Patricia was. She introduced you as... Rachel hesitated. As what? The woman who trapped her son before he came to his senses. I felt my stomach drop. Rachel continued quietly. Emily, everyone laughed. That night, I didn't tell Daniel. Not because I wanted to protect Patricia, because I was exhausted. I was tired of being the reason he had to choose between peace and confrontation. So I smiled, pretended everything was fine, and hoped that eventually she would get tired of hating me. Instead, she became more determined than ever. What I didn't know was that Patricia wasn't just gossiping anymore. She had started planning something much bigger, something she believed would finally remove me from Daniel's life forever. By the time I discovered what she was doing behind our backs, the ultimatum had already been set in motion. The first sign that something was wrong wasn't a phone call or a nasty comment. It was silence. Patricia, who normally found an excuse to call Daniel 3 or 4 times a week, suddenly stopped reaching out altogether. No texts, no invitations, no guilt trips, nothing. At first, Daniel joked about it. Maybe Mom finally decided to let us live our lives. I wanted to believe him, but people like Patricia don't suddenly change. They simply change tactics. About 3 weeks later, Daniel came home looking distracted. He loosened his tie, dropped his briefcase by the front door, and stared out the living room window for a long moment before speaking. "Can I ask you something?" Of course. He hesitated. Have you ever said anything disrespectful to my mom when I wasn't around? The question hit me harder than I expected. I looked at him, searching his face. Why would you ask me that? He rubbed the back of his neck. She told me you've been making little comments, that you've said she isn't welcome in our future children's lives. I blinked. What? She said you've been polite in front of me, but cruel when we're alone. I couldn't even form words for a few seconds. Finally, I whispered, Daniel, that's a lie. I know, he said quickly. I just needed to hear you say it. He crossed the room and wrapped his arms around me. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have even asked. I rested my forehead against his chest. She wants you to doubt me. I won't. Those two words should have made me feel better. Instead, they frightened me, because I realized Patricia had stopped attacking me directly. Now she was attacking the trust between us. And trust is much harder to repair than hurt feelings. Over the next month, the lies became more elaborate. Apparently, I thought his family was beneath me. Apparently, I wanted Daniel to cut everyone off. Apparently, I complained about every dollar he spent on his parents. None of it was true. The strange thing was that no one ever confronted me directly. They simply whispered behind closed doors. By the time I entered the room, the conversation had already ended. Smiles became forced. Conversations became shorter. Even Daniel's cousins, who had always been kind to me, suddenly seemed distant. One Saturday afternoon, I was shopping for groceries when I ran into Daniel's aunt, Linda. She looked uncomfortable. Emily. Hi, Aunt Linda. She glanced around to make sure no one was listening. I don't know what's going on in your family. Neither did I. But be careful. What do you mean? She sighed. Patricia has been telling everyone you're trying to isolate Daniel so you can control his money. I almost laughed. It sounded so ridiculous. Then I realized she wasn't joking. Does everyone believe her? Linda gave me a sad smile. People tend to believe the person they've known for 40 years instead of the one they've known for 3. That sentence stayed with me all day. Sometimes the truth isn't enough. Sometimes history wins. When I told Daniel what happened, he was furious. He called his mother immediately. I only heard his side of the conversation. No, that's not what happened. Stop changing the subject. Mom, answer the question. Did you tell Aunt Linda that? No, don't cry. Mom. He closed his eyes. I have to go. He hung up without saying goodbye. How did it go? I asked quietly. He let out a bitter laugh. Apparently she's the victim. Of course she was. She always was. A week later, Michael invited Daniel to lunch. Just the two of them. I didn't think much of it. Brothers should spend time together. But when Daniel came home, something felt different. He was quieter than usual. Not angry, just disappointed. What happened? He sat beside me on the couch. Michael says the family misses who I used to be. What does that mean? He said before I met you, I never argued with Mom. I stared at him. And? He smiled sadly. I also never told Mom no. That was true. Before we married, Daniel avoided conflict at all costs. If Patricia wanted something, she usually got it. Not because Daniel agreed with her, because saying yes was easier than enduring weeks of emotional manipulation. Marriage changed that, not because I demanded it, because building a life together required boundaries. Apparently, his family viewed those boundaries as betrayal. A few days later, Patricia called again. This time, she sounded unusually cheerful. I'm hosting a family dinner next Saturday. Daniel hesitated. I don't know. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she interrupted. I'd like us to start over. After everything that had happened, I didn't trust her. Not even a little. But Daniel wanted peace. And honestly, so did I. Maybe this was the fresh start we'd been hoping for. The evening of the dinner, I baked Patricia's favorite lemon cake. Daniel laughed when he saw me carefully decorating it. "You're still trying. I'd rather regret being kind than regret becoming bitter." He kissed my forehead. "That's one of the reasons I love you." When we arrived, everyone was already there. The atmosphere felt strange, too cheerful, like actors waiting for the curtain to rise. Patricia greeted me with a hug, an actual hug. She even complimented my dress. Michael offered to take my coat. His wife smiled warmly. For a brief, ridiculous moment, I wondered if I'd been wrong about them. Then dinner started. The conversation stayed light. Vacations, sports, work, old family memories. No arguments, no insults, no passive-aggressive remarks. It almost felt normal. Halfway through dinner, Patricia stood up. She tapped her wine glass gently. "I'd like to say something." Everyone immediately fell silent. Daniel smiled. "I hope this isn't another lecture." Everyone laughed, even Patricia. Then she looked directly at me. "Emily, I'd like to apologize. I nearly dropped my fork. I know we've had our differences. Understatement of the century. I haven't always made you feel welcome." I waited. "So tonight?" She reached into her purse and pulled out a small velvet box. Inside was a beautiful family heirloom necklace. It had supposedly belonged to Daniel's grandmother. "I want you to have this." The room erupted in smiles. Daniel squeezed my hand. I didn't know what to say. "Thank you." For the first time since I'd known her, Patricia looked genuinely emotional. Maybe, just maybe, people could change. After dessert, Michael suggested the women help clean the kitchen while the men stayed in the dining room to talk business. It seemed harmless, so I carried dishes into the kitchen with Patricia and the others. About 10 minutes later, I realized the dining room had gone completely quiet. Not conversationally quiet, unnaturally quiet. I looked toward the doorway. It had been closed. That's odd. The door had never been closed during family dinners before. Patricia noticed me looking. "Oh, they're discussing something private." Something about the way she smiled made my stomach tighten. When I offered to help bring coffee into the dining room, she stepped in front of me. "No, sweetheart. I can take it. We've got it." She took the tray from my hands. Her fingers tightened around it just enough for me to notice. She didn't want me going in there. Not yet. For the next 15 minutes, every attempt I made to leave the kitchen was gently blocked. Someone always needed help. Someone always asked another question. Someone always found another plate to wash. I glanced at the clock. What could possibly require such a long, private conversation? Finally, the dining room door opened. Daniel walked out. His face had gone completely pale. His eyes met mine across the room. I had never seen that expression before. Not anger, not sadness. Disbelief, as though someone had just shattered everything he thought he knew about the people who raised him. Patricia stepped into the doorway behind him. She smiled politely. "Emily, would you come back to the dining room?" Every instinct in my body screamed that something was terribly wrong. I looked at Daniel. He didn't say a word. He simply reached for my hand and held it tighter than he ever had before. That's when I knew. Whatever had happened in that room, it wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Daniel's hand was warm, but I could feel it trembling. That frightened me more than anything else. My husband wasn't a man who rattled easily. I'd seen him handle million-dollar negotiations at work with less tension than he was showing now. As we walked back into the dining room, every chair was occupied except two. Ours. It felt less like a family dinner and more like a courtroom. Patricia remained standing at the head of the table. Her expression was calm, almost rehearsed. She waited until Daniel and I sat down before speaking. I asked everyone to stay because this conversation affects the whole family. No one objected. No one even looked uncomfortable. Michael folded his arms across his chest. Daniel's father, Robert, stared down at the table, saying nothing. Patricia took a slow breath. "Daniel," she began, "before Emily came into your life, this family was close." I glanced at Daniel. He didn't respond. "You came to every holiday. You called your mother every day. Your brother could count on you. We were united." She turned toward me. Then everything changed. There it was. The accusation she'd been building toward for years. "I didn't change your family," I said quietly. "You certainly influenced it." Daniel finally spoke. "Mom." "No, let me finish." She reached into a folder lying on the table. A folder. She had brought evidence, or what she believed was evidence. She pulled out several printed bank statements. "I've watched my son spend less and less time with us while building a life that revolves around one person." She looked directly at me. "You," Michael chimed in. "You've convinced him we're the enemy." "I've never done that." "Oh, really?" he replied. "Then why doesn't he help this family the way he used to?" Daniel leaned forward. "Because I'm building my own family now." Michael laughed. "No, she's making you choose." Patricia nodded as though that settled the matter. Then she revealed what the private meeting had actually been about. "We've all discussed this." She looked around the room, and several relatives quietly nodded. "We believe this marriage is destroying our family." A chill ran through me. Not because of what she said, because of how many people seemed willing to agree. She placed both hands on the table. "So we've made a decision." Daniel's jaw tightened. "What decision?" Patricia's voice remained perfectly steady. "If you want to remain part of this family." She paused just long enough to make everyone hold their breath. "You need to end this marriage." Silence. The words hung in the air like smoke after an explosion. For a moment, I honestly wondered if I'd imagined them. No one gasped. No one protested. No one said Patricia had gone too far. They already knew. This wasn't spontaneous. They had planned every word before we arrived. I slowly turned toward Daniel. His face had gone completely blank. The kind of blank expression people wear when they're trying to process something too painful to understand. Patricia continued speaking. "We'll help with the divorce." My heart sank. "As long as you leave now, we'll make sure you never struggle financially." Michael nodded. "I'll even bring you into my business as a partner." Another uncle added, "Your grandfather's lake house can be transferred into your name." Then Patricia delivered the sentence that made my stomach twist. "You deserve a wife who strengthens this family, not one who tears it apart." I realized then, this dinner had never been about reconciliation. It had been an intervention, and I was the problem they intended to remove. I looked around the room. Some relatives avoided my eyes. Others looked almost sympathetic, but not one person spoke in my defense. Not one. I stood slowly. "I think I should leave." Patricia nodded. "I think that's best." I reached for my purse. Daniel's hand stopped me. "Sit down." His voice was calm, too calm. I looked at him. He wasn't looking at me. His eyes were fixed on his mother. He stood. "I've listened to everyone." No one interrupted. "I've heard every accusation." Patricia smiled faintly, clearly believing she had won. Then Daniel picked up the folder she'd prepared. He flipped through the papers one by one. Bank statements, old family photos, printed text messages, even screenshots taken completely out of context. He closed the folder. "I have one question." Patricia smiled. "Anything." "When did loving my wife become a crime?" Her smile disappeared. "This isn't about love. No, it's about loyalty." Daniel nodded slowly. "I agree." Patricia looked relieved. Then he continued. "Loyalty." He repeated the word as if tasting it. "I've spent 36 years proving my loyalty to this family." No one spoke. "I missed vacations because someone needed money." He looked at Michael. "I emptied my savings to help your business." Michael shifted uncomfortably. "I canceled anniversaries because Mom wanted family dinners." He looked at Patricia. "I answered phone calls during work meetings because if I didn't, I'd hear about it for a week." His voice grew stronger with every sentence. "I thought that was what good sons did." Patricia opened her mouth. Daniel raised a hand. "No, for once, you're going to listen." The room became perfectly still. "I kept telling Emily you would eventually accept her." He smiled sadly at me. "I was wrong." He turned back to his family. "She has shown every one of you kindness you didn't deserve." He pointed toward the kitchen. "She baked Mom's favorite cake today." Patricia looked away. She bought birthday gifts. She remembered anniversaries. She apologized for things she never did. His voice cracked for the first time. "And every single time, you found another reason to hate her." No one argued, because they couldn't. Everything he said was true. Daniel took a deep breath. "You keep saying she changed me." He smiled. "You're right." Patricia's eyes widened. "She did change me." Another pause. "She taught me the difference between obedience and respect." He looked around the table. "Respect is earned. Control is demanded. And for years, I confused the two." Patricia's face had gone pale. "You think she's taken your son away?" He shook his head gently. "No. What you've lost is the version of me that was too afraid to say no." The room fell into absolute silence. I had never heard Daniel speak like this. Neither had they. Then Patricia stood abruptly. "So that's it? You're choosing her?" Daniel didn't hesitate. "Not for a second. I'm choosing my wife." His voice echoed through the dining room. "The vows I made weren't temporary. I promised to stand beside her. Not until it became inconvenient. Not until someone pressured me. For life." Patricia's eyes filled with tears. "If you walk out that door, don't expect to come back." Daniel looked at her for several long seconds. The sadness in his face was unmistakable. Then he quietly replied, "Mom, I've been standing outside this family's door for years. You just never noticed." He reached for my hand. This time, it wasn't trembling. It was steady, certain. Without another word, we walked toward the front door together. Behind us, no one moved. No one called our names. No one tried to stop us. The only sound was the old grandfather clock beginning to tick again. As Daniel opened the front door, I glanced back one last time. Every person at that table looked stunned. Not because he had chosen me, because for the first time in his life, they realized they could no longer control him. The drive home was painfully quiet. Neither of us turned on the radio. Neither of us reached for our phones. The only sound inside the car was the rhythmic sweep of the windshield wipers, even though the rain had already stopped. Daniel kept both hands firmly on the steering wheel. His eyes never left the road. I wanted to say something, anything, but there are moments in life when words only get in the way. When we finally pulled into our driveway, Daniel shut off the engine but didn't move. He simply stared through the windshield. "I keep replaying it," he said softly. "The whole night." I reached over and rested my hand on his. "You don't have to explain anything. He shook his head. I do. His voice cracked. I spent years asking you to be patient. He swallowed hard. I kept believing they'd change. I squeezed his hand. You believed the best about them. I believed the best because they were my family. He finally turned toward me. And while I was hoping they'd become better people, you were carrying the weight of every insult. Tears filled his eyes. I'm so sorry, Emily. I had imagined this conversation 100 different ways over the years. In every version, I thought hearing those words would make me feel victorious. Instead, they broke my heart. I leaned across the center console and wrapped my arms around him. You don't have to apologize for loving your family. No, he held me tighter. I have to apologize for not protecting mine. For the first time since we'd gotten married, I felt something shift. Not in our relationship, in him. The little boy who had spent his entire life chasing his mother's approval had finally stopped running. The next morning, Patricia called. Neither of us answered. Then came another call. Then another. By lunchtime, she had left 9 voicemails. Daniel listened to exactly 1. Her voice sounded shaky. I was emotional last night. Pause. I didn't mean things the way they sounded. Another pause. Call me. He deleted it without responding. By evening, the messages changed. You owe your family a conversation. Then, if you don't call me today, don't blame me for what happens next. Daniel looked at me. That's a threat. I nodded. It sounds like one. He blocked her number. I honestly thought that would be the end of it. I underestimated Patricia. 3 days later, Daniel's office called. There's someone here asking to see you. He frowned. Who? They say it's your mother. Daniel closed his eyes. I told security not to let family into the building without permission. The receptionist hesitated. She told them it was an emergency. He sighed. I'll come downstairs. About 20 minutes later, he called me. I need you to know something before you hear it from someone else. What happened? Mom made a scene. My stomach tightened. How bad? She started crying in the lobby. Oh no. She told everyone I'd abandoned my family. I could hear the exhaustion in his voice. When security escorted her outside, she shouted that you'd manipulated me. I closed my eyes. Did your coworkers hear? All of them. He gave a small, humorless laugh. I'll probably be known as the guy with the dramatic mother for the rest of my career. That evening, he came home carrying flowers. For me? No. He smiled gently. For us. He placed them in a vase on the kitchen table, a reminder that this house stays peaceful. It was such a simple gesture, but after years of chaos, peace suddenly felt like the greatest luxury in the world. A week passed, then another. Life slowly settled into something normal. We cooked dinner together, went on evening walks, started looking at houses again. One Saturday morning, we toured a beautiful little home with a wraparound porch and a maple tree in the front yard. As we stood in what would have been the nursery one day, Daniel slipped his hand into mine. I can picture our future here. So can I. For the first time in months, I allowed myself to believe the worst was behind us. Then my phone buzzed. It was Rachel. Don't panic. Whenever someone begins with those words, panic is usually the correct response. What happened? I thought you should know before someone else tells you. My heart sank. What is it? I was having lunch downtown. Okay. Patricia was there. I waited. She wasn't alone. Who was she with? Rachel lowered her voice. A woman. So? They were looking at photographs. I frowned. What kind of photographs? Pictures of Daniel. Every muscle in my body tightened, and the woman kept smiling. Rachel took a deep breath. Emily, I heard Patricia tell her, "You'll make a much better wife for my son." I couldn't speak. Rachel continued, "I don't know who she is, but Patricia introduced her to several people as Daniel's future." The words hit me like ice water. Not because I believed Daniel would ever betray me, because Patricia hadn't accepted reality. She was still trying to replace me. That night I showed Daniel the messages Rachel had sent. He stared at them for a long time. Finally, he whispered, "I know who she is." "You do?" He nodded. "Her name is Victoria." My eyebrows rose. "You've met her?" "Years ago." He looked almost embarrassed. "Mom tried setting us up before I met you." "What happened?" "I told Mom I wasn't interested." "And?" "Apparently." He sighed. "She never gave up." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. For all these years? I guess so. He leaned back against the couch. I honestly thought Mom had moved on. Instead, she'd been waiting. Waiting for our marriage to fail so she could continue a plan she'd started years earlier. The next afternoon, there was a knock at our door. When I opened it, I froze. Standing on our porch was Victoria. She looked elegant, perfectly dressed, perfectly composed. She smiled politely. "Emily?" "Yes." "My name is Victoria." "I know." She nodded slowly. "I was hoping we could talk." Every instinct told me to close the door, but something in her expression stopped me. She didn't look arrogant. She looked uncomfortable. "I promise," she said quietly. "I'm not here for the reason you think." Before I could answer, Daniel walked into the hallway. The moment he saw her, his expression hardened. "What are you doing here?" Victoria looked directly at both of us. "I think your mother has been lying to all three of us." The silence that followed felt heavier than anything we'd experienced before. Because if Victoria was telling the truth, then Patricia's manipulation had reached far beyond our marriage, and none of us knew just how deep it really went. Daniel stared at Victoria, his expression guarded. "I think you should explain exactly what you mean," he said. Victoria nodded. "I will, but first, I owe both of you an apology." She looked directly at me. "Mrs. Carter, I am so sorry for showing up unannounced." I folded my arms but remained silent. "I never intended to come between your marriage." Daniel frowned. "Then why were you meeting with my mother?" Victoria let out a long breath. "Because she lied to me." She reached into her handbag and pulled out her phone. "I've saved every message." She opened a conversation and handed the phone to Daniel. As his eyes moved across the screen, I watched the color drain from his face. Patricia had told Victoria that Daniel and I were already separated. She claimed we were only staying married until the paperwork was finalized. She wrote that I had been emotionally abusive and that Daniel was too kind to admit how miserable he was. There were dozens of messages. Some promised that Daniel would eventually come back to the woman he was always meant to marry. Others encouraged Victoria to be patient. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Victoria quietly continued. "I believed her at first because she's your mother." She looked ashamed. She spoke with so much confidence. Daniel shook his head in disbelief. "I haven't spoken to you in over 5 years." "I know. So why would you believe I'd suddenly want a relationship?" Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "Because she told me you'd been trying to protect your reputation until the divorce was final." She paused. "But then I saw the two of you together last week." "What do you mean?" "I was leaving a bookstore." She smiled faintly. "You didn't even know I was there." She looked at me. "You were laughing together." Then she looked back at Daniel. "You looked at your wife the way a man only looks at the love of his life." Her voice softened. "I realized your mother had been lying. So I came here because I refused to let her use me to destroy something real. For a long moment, none of us spoke. Finally, I stepped forward. Thank you for telling us the truth. Victoria nodded. I also wanted to give you this. She handed Daniel a sealed envelope. Your mother asked me to keep copies of everything. Inside were printed emails, notes, even a guest list Patricia had been creating for a celebration dinner. The title written across the top made my stomach turn. Daniel's New Beginning. There was no date, just names, as if our marriage had already ended in Patricia's mind. Daniel slowly folded the papers. I don't even recognize my own mother anymore. Victoria gave him a sad smile. I don't think she's been trying to find happiness. I think she's been trying to control it. After she left, Daniel and I sat together on the porch until sunset. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, he broke the silence. I've spent my whole life wondering what I could do to make my mother proud. He looked down at the envelope. I finally understand. I waited. There was never anything I could do. Because this was never about me. It was about control. A few days later, Daniel received a call from his Aunt Linda. I think you should come. Why? Your grandfather asked the family to meet. Neither of us wanted to go. But Daniel's grandfather was the one person in the family who had always treated me with kindness. We agreed. When we arrived, the atmosphere was completely different from the last dinner. No fancy meal. No smiling faces. Just quiet tension. Patricia looked surprised to see us. Even more surprised when Victoria walked in a few minutes later. She hadn't expected that. Daniel's grandfather stood slowly. At 81 years old, he didn't raise his voice often. He didn't need to. When I built this family, he began, I hoped it would always stand on honesty. He looked directly at Patricia. I've spent the last week reading messages, emails, and listening to recordings. Patricia's eyes widened. Recordings? Victoria calmly placed her phone on the table. I recorded our last meeting. Patricia immediately stood. How dare you? No, the old man replied firmly. How dare you? The room fell silent. You lied to your own son. You lied to this young woman. He nodded toward Victoria. And you tried to destroy a marriage because you couldn't accept that your son had become a husband. Patricia opened her mouth to defend herself. Nothing came out. For the first time since I'd known her, she had no excuse, no tears, no story. No one believed her anymore. Michael finally spoke. Mom, his voice shook. Did you really do all this? She looked at him desperately. I was trying to keep this family together. Daniel quietly answered. No, you were trying to keep everyone under your control. No one disagreed. His grandfather reached into a folder. I've updated my estate plans. Everyone looked confused. He continued. Anyone who attempts to manipulate or divide this family for personal control will no longer have authority over family decisions. He placed the documents back on the table. Respect must be earned. Then he looked at me. Emily. My heart skipped. I owe you an apology. You married into this family expecting love. His voice trembled. And instead, you were given pain. Tears filled my eyes. I should have spoken sooner. I gently smiled. Thank you. Patricia remained completely silent. For the first time in years, she had nothing left to say. As Daniel and I prepared to leave, his grandfather stopped us. One more thing. Daniel turned. I've watched you your entire life. He smiled proudly. I've never been more proud of you than the day you honored your wedding vows. Daniel hugged him tightly. Neither of them spoke. They didn't have to. Some moments say everything without words. 6 months later, our lives looked completely different. We bought the little house with the wraparound porch. Every Saturday morning, we drank coffee outside while watching the neighborhood wake up. The nursery that once existed only in our imagination slowly became a real room. One afternoon, I handed Daniel a tiny wrapped box. He looked puzzled. "What's this?" "Open it." Inside was a pair of baby shoes. He stared at them, then looked at me. His eyes filled with tears before I even said the words. "We're having a baby." He laughed and cried at the same time. Then he pulled me into the longest hug of our marriage. Months later, when our daughter was born, Daniel held her carefully in his arms. He whispered something so quietly I almost didn't hear it. "You'll never have to earn my love." I realized he wasn't only speaking to our daughter. He was speaking to the little boy he used to be. Patricia sent several letters after that. Daniel read every one, then quietly placed them back into their envelopes. One day I asked if he planned to answer. He smiled gently. "I've already answered." "How?" "By protecting the family I promised to build." As I watched him playing with our daughter on the living room floor, I understood something that had taken me years to learn. Real love doesn't ask you to choose between your spouse and your family. Real love builds a new family where respect, trust, and peace come first. And anyone who demands otherwise has already made their choice. If this story touched your heart, we'd love to hear from you. Tell us in the comments. Did Daniel make the right choice, or would you have handled the situation differently? If you enjoyed this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss another powerful story of love, family, betrayal, and justice. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next story.